Hello everyone, welcome to the Mercury Virtual. Hope you are doing good. Today I am going to continue the same module, that is the quality systems and IT. That is version number 7, and today's topic that I'm going to cover is the documentation. What is the need of the documentation that is required to establish what are the various documents that is required for this. So this is a need for the documentation, that is what is the main need for the documentation, why we are using the documentation, why we are using everything is the documentation. That is the next part. That is why everything is in the written form. That is the need of the documentation. So the standard requires the organization to determine the need to establish the document specific to the product. That is what is the need that is used to determine the need to establish the document that is specific to the product. What does this mean? That is what is the main use or what is the main need for the documentation. So document specific to the product is any documentation that is used for that is used or generated by the product realization process. That means whenever we are using the documentation that is specific to the product, that is any documentation that is used or generated by the product, that is any documentation that is generated as a product, that is generated as a, we can say, the tool that is used for the documentation part, that is used for the product realization process. So such documents includes specifications, drawings, plans, standards, manuals, handouts, procedure, instructions. So whatever the document that we are preparing, that we are using for the written for the written proof, that includes document includes the specifications, then drawings, then plans, then standard, then data sheets, manuals, handbooks, procedures, instructions, records, reports, etc. So whatever the procedure, whatever the data procedure that I'm using, that I'm going to prepare with the data procedure, data sheets, manual, handbook, that is refers to the product or some aspects of the product. Determining the need to establish documentation means that in the planning product realization, you need to determine the information carriers. That means what are the various impact that is used for the information carriers that will fetch each of the process. That is how to fetch the process, how to mean with the process. That is why it is necessary for the product approach principles. There is a product approach principle that is I am referring, that is a process approach. So there is a need for the documentation for the process approach principle. So why it is necessary? Next question, that answer is the that is respond to the process approach principle that is indicated, that is used, that is how we are using the process approach principle, why there is a requirement for the process approach principle that is used for the process approach principle. So whenever we are using the documentation, whenever we are using the best part out of the documentation, that determines how useful it is effective, or how we are using the current part, how we are using the current data for this one. So the process description that is used, so whatever the process description, that will specify the types of the information required to operate the process. That is what are the various information that is required to operate the process, what are the various data that is used to be gathering, that is generated by the process. And however, depending on the nature of the product, contract or project, these may not be customized for the specific product. That is not specified for the specific product, so that they carry the required information, so that they require the carried information that is required for to the points, to the data, to the required points of the implementation. So in simple terms, whenever we use the documentation, that means required terms are downloaded in the perfect time. So there is a requirement for the uploading of the data, uploading of the documents. How it is implemented, that is used by the WBS, that is a work breakdown structure. So there is a WBS that is using the work breakdown structure, that is used for the documentation, that is used for the implementation of the data, so that we can use the work breakdown structure. So for each process, there is no requirement, there is no data that is required, that is used for the documentation part. That is a work breakdown structure. So that is implemented, that is established at the work breakdown structure. So there is a work breakdown structure that identify all the major processes. So what are the various major processes that is used? So what are the various major application or the packages of the work to be carried out? And for each major task that is available, so there is a data due, or there is a data statement that is available, that defines the input task and the output task. So whatever the input task, whatever the output task that is available, that is used for the input, that is used for the output, that is available in this one. So some of these will be document, particularly in the design and we can say the planning phase, so there is a design and the planning phase that is available, that is used for the system application, that is used for the system data that is required for this one. So for less complex project that is available, our list of the deliverables may be all that is required, identifying the documents by their name, that is required in this one, that is required for the data gathering, that is required for the data storage, that is and data may not be available for the data risk, that is the data is available, that is required, identifying the document by their name, authors and the delivery name. Now this is a need for the documentation, so to make the written records, to make for the future use, to make for the, we can say, the permanent records, so there is a need for the documentation, and for the there is a need for the resources that is required, that is used to provide the resources that is available, that is required in the data storage, that is required in the data gathering. So it provides the resources that is specific to the product. Now what is the meaning of this one, why there is a need for the resources? So resources are an unavailable supply of the equipment, environment, machines, material, process, labor, documentation and the utility. So whatever the resources that is available, whatever the data that is available, that is used, that is available, that is used as a device, and there is also utilities such as the data, such as the time that is acquired. So resources are available, and available source of input, available data input that is acquired, that is used, that is available supply of equipment, environment, machine, material, process, labor. So whatever the material, whatever the equipment that is available, so that is available with the machines, material, process, labor, documentation, and utilities such as the heat, light, water, and power, etc. That can be drawn upon when it is needed. So resources means what are the various tools that is required, what are the various needs that is required, that is the resources that is available with this one. So there is a resources that is available, so that is used with this one, that is used with the data resources. This therefore requires this therefore data required, that is used, that is requires are the resources that is used. So therefore the detailed planning and the logistic management and the resources are available, that is used. That is used for the logistic management, that requires many lists and the sub plans, so that the resources are available, so that the data are available, so that it is used with the data resources, so that it is used with the data resources, with the data usage, that requires sub plans that is used for this one. So inventory management is an element of such planning. So whatever the planning that is available, that is required with inventory management. Why it is necessary? That leads to the process control principle. So there is a process control or process approach principle that is required for the resources, that is there is a need for the resources that is used with this one. So there is a need for the resources that is used for to get the data, to make the data available, to make the data available, that is used to make the resources. And all the businesses are constrained by their resources. Everyone is using their resources, everyone is getting their resources. So there is a resource that is available. So there is a resources that is available for this one. Even when the management is for the existing product, there is a delivery resources, there is a data resources that is used, that is used for making the quantity or the delivery required might constrain or strain existing resources. So whatever the existing resources, whatever the files, whatever the data that is required, that is used for making the data, that is used for acquiring the data, that is used for the existing product quantity or the delivery that is required, that is used for documentation, that is used for the files, that is used for the data. And how it is implemented, that is a successful implementation requires or depends on the manager having their current details of the capability. So it depends on the manager that having their details, that having their data, that having their resources that is available for this one. So whatever the resources, whatever the data that is available, so that is used to on the that is used to get the data, that is used to get the data that is available for data resources. So whatever the data, whatever the resources that is available, so that is used to get the data in the detailed form, identifying the specific requirement. So whatever the requirement that is used, so that requirement may be carried out, that requirement may be used for the managers, that is used for the documentation part. Chart that is also available in this one. There are two charts that is used for the documentation part, that is used for the resources. What are the two charts that is available? That is the Gantt chart and the PERT chart. This is the full form is project evaluation and the review technique, and there is a Gantt chart that is used for the development. There is a use for the development of the Gantt chart and the PERT chart, and the ability to predict the resources level in terms of the manpower. So whatever the resources that is used, whatever the resources, whatever the data that is available, that is used to identify, that is used to predict the process throughput and the capability. That is what is the throughput and the capabilities that is available, that is used for the type of the resources that is to be determined might include any of the following. And there is a specific requirement tools, and there is a test that is available. So there is a specific equipment tools, test software, and we can say that machining equipment that is used for the database, that is used for the database management system. And there is also equipment to capture, record, and transmit the information internally or between the organization and its customer. So whatever the customer, whatever the data that is available for to identify the data, that is used to get the data, that is used to build the data in the database form. So this is the ability, this is how it is implemented, that is used to require this one. And there is a new technologies that is such as the CAD or the CAM, that is the computer aided designing and the computer aided manufacturing. So these are the new technologies that is available in the as a part of the resources. These are the various, or there are various resources that is available as a part of the resources. And there is a fixture, jigs, and the other tools. And there's a fixture, tools, and other data that is available. And there is a new instrumentation, that is every part is in the data is either the new instrumentation, that is either for the monitoring processes or for measuring the quality characteristics. So whatever the quality characteristics that is available, that is used to measure the data, that is used to process the data. And there is a new measurement capabilities, that is the next part. There is a new skills required, or there is a new skills that is required to operate the processes designed at equipment that is used for this one. New resource and the development part, then there is a new handling equipment that is required, that is the plants and the facilities. Now, next is how to determine or determining the verification, validation, and the monitoring activities. That is how to determine or how to verify what are the various verification, what are the various validation and the monitoring activities. So standard requires the organization to determine the required verification, validation, monitoring, inspection, and the test activities specific to the product. So whatever the activities, whatever the data that is available, that is used for the verification, validation, monitoring, inspection, and the test activities that is specific to the product. So whatever the material, whatever the data that is available, that is used for this one, that is used for the verification, that is used for the validation, that is used for the monitoring activity. The standard requires the organization to determine the required verification, validation, monitoring, inspection, and the test activity that is specific to the product. So whatever the specific activities, whatever the data that is available, that is used for the monitoring, that is used for the inspection and the test activity. Now, what does this mean? So the required verification activities are those activities that is necessary to establish that a product meets or is meeting the defined and agreed requirements. So what are the various requirements? What are the various agreed requirements that is used? That is used to define and the agreed requirements. So that is the verification activity. There are several methods of verification that include inspection, test, monitoring, analysis, simulation, observation, or demonstration, each serving the same purpose. So whatever the purpose, whatever the verification that includes, whatever the data that is included, that includes a verification, inspection, test, monitoring, analysis, that serves the same purpose but each being different in the manner in which it is conducted. So whatever the data, whatever the manner it is in which it is conducted, and the conditions under which it is appropriate. What are the conditions that is applying, that is used for the appropriate conditions. Now, why is this necessary? What is the main use of this one? Why it is necessary? So this requirement responds to the factual approach principle. There is a factual approach principle that is acquired, that is used for the factual approach principle. So the provisions should be made in the management system for verification of the product at various stages. So there is a verification that is done at the various stages through the realization process. So if I'm using the realization process, so there is a management approaches that is occupied, that is used to capture the data, that is used to get the data in the manufacturing resources. That is used to get the data in the manufacturing resources that require the factual approach principle. So the provision should be made in the management system for verification of the product at various stages, at various data that is acquired, that is used for the verification data, that is used to verify the stage at which the product at various stages of the realization process. How it is implemented? That is implemented by using the product verification, by using the verification details. So it is implemented by using the product verification. So the first step that is required, that is used, that is a product verification. That is a we have to verify the product, whether the product that is acquired, whether the product that is required is correct or not. So there is a product verification that is verified by the simple object, that is verified by the simple data, that is verified by the simple examination or the final inspection or at the point of the delivery. The requirement is easily satisfied. On the other hand, if you can't do this, then simply use the principle that is required, use the principle that is more complex, that is used for the documentation part. And generally there are two types of requirements. One is for the defining requirements, one is the verification requirement. So whenever we have to define the requirement, there is one part, and there is a verification requirement. So there is a define, how to define the requirement and how to verify the requirement. And defining requirements specify the features and the characteristics required of a product, process, or the services. That is how to define the requirements, that is used to specify the features and the characteristics. That is what are the various characteristics that is available to define the requirements, and these may be wholly specified by the customer or by the organization or a mixture of the two. That is, what are the various data that is acquired, that is used for the product, that is used for the process, or that may be used for the service. There are three parts in this. One is a product, one is a process, one is a service. And these may be wholly specified by the customer or by the organization or the mixture of both. That is, either using the customer, either using the organization, either 50% is done by the customer, either 50% is done by the organization. That is for the defining the requirements. Next part is how to verify the requirements, whether the requirements that are coming, that are, we can say, that is occupied the data, that specify the requirements or not. So to verify that the data will be available or the requirements have been achieved, and again may be wholly specified by the customer or by the organization or a mixture of the two. And with the verification requirements, there are other factors that is also taken into consideration, that depends on what you are supplying and to whom you are supplying it. That is, what are you supplying and to whom, that is, what is the main consent person that is used to supply that data. And in a contextual situation, the customer may specify what he wants to be verified. That is, what he wants to be verified, how it is required, why it is required. And many of the national and the international standards that specify the test that product must pass in the performance of the design requirement. So whatever the data requirement, whatever the data performances that is used to design the requirements. Now, what are the various requirements? What are the various issues that is required? So what your customer wants to be verified to meet the need for the confidence, you demonstrate compliance. So what are the various requirements that need to be confidence? What you need to verify to demonstrate that you are meeting all your customer or defining requirements? What you need to verify to demonstrate that you are meeting your own defined requirements? So that is how to verify the requirement that is meeting the confidence, how you verify that in meeting the defining requirements, then what do you need to verify to demonstrate that you are meeting your own defining requirements? So how do you demonstrate, or what are the various effects that it is demonstrating this one? So verification requirements are not limited to the product, service features and the characteristics, and one may need to consider who carries out the verification. That is, what are the various verification details, where and when it is carried out. That is, first of all, what are the various verification details, where it is carried out, when it is carried out, and under what conditions and on what quantity and the standards these will be applied. That may be using the prototype or the production model. And you may find that the only way you can put your product on the market is being having a tested on an independent test authority. So that is, what are the test authority that is occupied, that is used to put the data in the market. Now there are a number of ways of documenting the verification requirement. What are the various ways? By producing the defining specification which prescribes the requirement, that is how to achieve the data, what are the various requirements that is used to achieve the data, or what are the various tools that is used to achieve the data by using the performances, by using the inspection test, analysis, audits, review, evaluation, and other means of the verification. So what are the various modes? We can say what are the various ways by producing the defining requirements. Then by producing the separate verification specification. So this is defining the specification. This is producing the separate verification specification that defines which features are using, which features to be verified, and the means by which such verification is carried out. And by producing a quality plan or a verification plan that identifies the verification stages, that is, what are the various verification stages by which the inspection will be carried out, conception will be carried out. By root card, conferencing drawings and the specification, by inspection and the test instruction that is specific to a production line, product, or the range of the product. In fact, you may need to employ one or more of the above techniques to identify all the requirements or verification requirements. That is, what are the various verification requirements that needs to identify, that need to take out, that is identifying all the requirement or verification requirements. Now, next is document verification. So it is necessary to verify that all the documentation needed to produce and install the product is compatible with the data product, that is compatible with the procedures, quality planning reviews, quality data. Then determining the characteristics of the product acceptance, that is what are the various tools, or what are the various, we can say, the criteria or the approaches that is used for the product specification that is used by the organization. So criteria means what are the various characteristics that the product or the service need to exhibit that it to be deemed acceptable to the customer or the regulator. That is, what are the various qualities, what are the various terms, what are the various data approaches that is used for the customer or the regulator. And these are those standards, references, and other means that is used for judging compliance with the defined requirement. That is, what are the standards, references that is used for judge the compliance with the defined requirement. In some cases, the requirements can be verified directly, such as when a measurable dimension is stated. And the standards are established for the level of the contamination. So there is a standard that is established for the different levels of contaminations, microbes, it is needed. Now, why it is necessary? That leads to that responds to the factual approach principle. So there is a factual approach principle that is carried out, that is meeting the requirement that is used for the effective communication. So in order to verify that the product or the services meet the specified requirement, there need to be unambiguous standard that is used for making the acceptance dimension. So there is a need for the acceptance dimensions or acceptance dimension that is used for the standards, and these standards need to be expressed in terms that are not open to interpretation. So that not open to the interpretation that is carried out. How it is implemented? So a common method of determining the acceptance criteria is to analyze each requirement. That means analyzing what all requirements are used, what is the data that is being fetched that will indicate that the requirement has been achieved or not. In some cases, national or international standard exists for use in demonstrating the acceptable performances. The secret is, ask yourself, can I verify we have achieved this? If I'm able to get the answer, that means everything is okay. So the next topic that is available, so there is a need of the resources also that is used. So what is the need of the resources? So that is required by the organization to provide the resources specific to the product. That is, what are the various resources that is available, so that is required by the organization to provide the resources that is specific to the product, determining the need of the resources. What does this mean? So resources are available supply of equipment, environment, machines, material, processes, labor, documentation, and utilities such as the heat that is required for the resources. So while there is the need of the resources that is used for this one, that is used for the required resources that we have already discussed. Now, there is a need for the records also. That is a need for the record, so that we have to maintain the evidence that the realization processes and the resulting product meets the requirement. So the standards require the organization to determine the records that is ready to provide evidence that the realization processes and the resulting products meet the requirement. That is, whether to provide, or that is used to provide the evidence, that means the written record that the realization processes, that the realization process and the resulting products meets the requirement. That is determining the need for the records. And what does this mean? So that is mean for the countless verification activities that will be carried out at the various levels of product and the service development, production and the delivery. So what all about that is used for the production delivery, that is used for the verification, and these activities will generate the data gathering for this one. So this topic, that need for the record, I'm going to continue within the next class, that is the tomorrow's